Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of H.R. 65.
Chairman Holsey moves adoption of H.R. 65. Properly second. Chairman Holsey. Chairman Holsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the clerk read the resolution.
Mr. Clerk, read the resolution.
House Resolution 65 by Chairman Holsey, a resolution to expel Justin Jones from his seat as a member of the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, elected by the 52nd Representative District. Whereas Article 2, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution provides that each House may determine the rules of its proceeding, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3 expel a member, but not a second time for the same offense, and shall have all the other powers necessary for a branch of the legislature of a free state. And whereas all members of the House of Representatives must comply with the permanent rules of order of the Tennessee House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly, including preserving order, adhering to decorum, speaking only with recognition, not crowding around the clerk's desk, avoiding personalities, and not using props or displaying political messages. And whereas during the House floor session, 19th legislative day on March 30th, 2023, Justin Jones of Davidson County, along with Gloria Johnson of Knox County and Justin J. Pearson of Shelby County, did knowingly and intentionally bring disorder and dishonor to the House of Representatives through their individual and collective actions. And whereas at approximately 10:49 a.m., Representative Jones and his colleagues, having gathered at Representative Johnson's desk, moved in unison to the well and began shouting without recognition. And whereas once gathered in the well and called out of order, Representative Jones and his colleagues proceeded to disrupt the proceedings of the House of Representatives from approximately 10:50 a.m. until approximately 11:42 a.m. And whereas during this time, Representative Jones and his colleagues shouted, pounded the podium, led chants with citizens in the gallery, and generally engaged in disorderly and disruptive conduct, including refusing to leave the well, sitting on the podium, and utilizing a sign displaying a political message. And whereas during this time, Representative Jones and Representative Pearson used a bullhorn to amplify their protestations, and whereas these actions were done in open session in the presence of and in witness by the members and staff of the House of Representatives, whereas it appears to be satisfaction of this body that Representative Jones's conduct on March 30th, 2023 constitutes disorderly behavior and justifies expulsion, and whereas such disorderly behavior on the part of Representative Jones reflects adversely upon the integrity and dignity of the House of Representatives of the state of Tennessee, places a cloud upon the actions of this honorable body, and is inconsistent with the duty of a member of this body, and where it is deemed that the best interest of the people of the state of Tennessee and this body for Representative Jones to relinquish his seat as a member of the House of Representatives. And whereas Representative Jones has been given advance notice of the contents of this resolution and has been afforded the opportunity to debate the resolution on the floor of this House prior to its passage, now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee that pursuant to the authority under Article 2, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution, this body hereby expels Justin Jones from his seat as a member of the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, elected by the 52nd Representative District for disorderly behavior occurring on March 30, 2023, and declares the 52nd Representative District seat vacant. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be prepared and forwarded to Justin Jones, the legislative body of Davidson County, the Honorable Bill Lee, Governor of the State of Tennessee, and the Honorable Trey Hargett, Secretary of State.
Representative Jones, you have 20 minutes for your opening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The world is watching Tennessee. The world is watching Tennessee. Because what is happening here today is a farce of democracy. What is happening here today is a situation in which the jury has already publicly announced the verdict. Just yesterday, the House Speaker took to national news to condemn us and call for expulsion before any evidence was presented, before any trial happened. And so what we see today is just a spectacle. What we see today is a lynch mob assembled to not lynch me, but our democratic process. But it will not stand, because no lie can live forever. Colleagues, The video you showed a few moments ago, I want to say thank you. Because it showed for the world the ridiculousness of the claims that what we were doing merit the ultimate punishment of expulsion. Mr. Speaker, I represent 78,000 people. And when I came to the well that day, I was not standing for myself, but I was standing for my constituents. And the thousands of Tennesseans gathered in this Capitol demanding that this body act. But most particularly, I was standing for those young people. Those young people, many of whom come from my district, many of whom can't even vote yet, many of whom are disenfranchised, but all of whom are terrified by the continued trend of mass shootings plaguing our state and plaguing this nation. And so that is why I walked up to the well. I walked up to the well because you were pushing my people back. We brought a megaphone because you cut our people off and you cut their representatives off from the microphone time after time after time after time after time again. And there comes a time where people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, my colleagues, I say that what we did was act in our responsibility as legislators to serve and give voice to the grievances of people who have been silenced. Article 2, Section 27 says that any member of the House, any member of the Senate has a right to dissent from and protest against legislation that they know to be injurious to the people. The inaction of this body when it comes to the crisis of mass shootings is injurious to the people. The obedience of this body to special interest groups like the NRA is injurious to the people. The proliferation of guns that you promote in this state is injurious to the people. And so we had no other choice but to get our dissent marked for the journals. The next day, I was shocked to get messages. Shocked to get copies of articles that House Speaker Cameron Sexton went on national television to lie to the world and say that what happened in this well was an insurrection. What happened out in those halls was an insurrection. I was shocked to have the Speaker of the House condemn mothers and children and grandmothers and parents and concerned citizens, clergy, lie on them and say that they were violent insurrectionists. And I think that he owes the people of Tennessee an apology. Because at no point was there violence. At no point did we encourage violence. In fact, what we were doing was calling for the end of gun violence that is terrorizing our children day after day after day, and all we offer are moments of silence. It is in that spirit of speaking for my constituents, of being a representative of the people, that I approached this well on last Thursday. Breaking a House rule, but exercising moral obedience to my constitutional responsibility to be a voice for my people, to be a voice for the Tennesseans who you choose not to listen to because of those NRA checks that are so hefty in your campaign funds. There comes a time where people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I came as a representative to this well. And so today, we are brought to here, where members are responding in the most extreme measure, not because of what we did, but because by breaking the quorum, we broke the glass of your false power for the world to see. We broke the glass of this chamber that someone called sacred. One of the members on the other side of the aisle was in tears and said, "I've never seen such a breach of this sacred chamber." And I thought to myself, that representative has obviously never read history. Because is it in this chamber, if you walk around this Capitol, you'll see bullet holes when representatives got into conflict. You'll see duels take place on this House floor, debating whether people like me should be treated like equal citizens under law. This is not a temple. This is a place where we're supposed to wrestle for our democracy and wrestle ideas and give voice to 78,000 constituents each of us represents. But for so long, this body, drunk with power, has modeled for the world what we know as nothing less than authoritarianism. And today is the climax of that behavior. That a week after a mass shooting plagued our community, the most direct action this legislative body takes, or should I say my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are taking, is to expel us for speaking about the issues of weapons of war on our streets. We called for you all to ban assault weapons, and you respond with an assault on democracy. That is why the nation is watching you today. And I say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that no matter what you vote, you have the votes, but you will not be victorious because there are generations of young people who see what is going on. There are young people that as you try and beat us down, they are rising up to take back this state from the extreme forces that have sought to take away the democratic process, the deliberative process. On last Thursday, when thousands gathered here, tried to silence members from talking about the issue of gun violence because they were afraid that a conversation would remind people that there is complicity of this body in what happened at Covenant Elementary School. The truth be told, colleagues, Covenant Elementary School was not the first mass shooting in Nashville. I represent a part of Nashville. And one of my constituents, who I don't know is in this chamber, Ms. Brooks, lost her son, Akila, in that mass shooting that occurred at the Waffle House in Antioch. And after that massacre, we demanded that this body act, but once again, you turned a blind eye and closed your ears and put your head in the sand and refused to listen to the voice of the people. Refused to listen to the voice of the people. And so once again, it was in that spirit of a representative for people who have time after time after time been silenced that I approached this well. And now this body who showed the video of what occurred, no violence, no death threats, but simply saying that until we have action, there will be no peace or safety in our communities. And how do my colleagues respond? They respond with the most extreme measure of expulsion, which has only taken place 3 times in this House. Only 3 times in over 200 years have there been members of the House of Representatives expelled. The first case was in 1866. 6 members were expelled for refusing to confer citizenship on formerly enslaved persons. Then in 1980, 1 member was expelled for taking a $1,000 bribe to kill a bill on committee. In 2016, 1 member who many of you served with was expelled for 22 counts of sexual harassment. And now what you're doing with this prejudged expulsion resolution is saying that our actions were on par and equivalent with those egregious, some would say criminal activities that occurred. But the truth be told that when we approached this well, we broke no laws. We committed no felonies. We did not abuse the power of our office. We were simply trying to gain a voice for our constituents. And so this is not about expelling us as individuals. This is your attempt. This is your attempt. This is your attempt to expel the voice of the people from the people's house. and it will not be successful. It will not look around. It will not be successful. Because your overreaction, your flexing of false power has awakened a generation of people who will let you know that your time is up. Let's talk about expulsion. For years, one of your colleagues who was an admitted child molester sat in this chamber, no expulsion. One member sits in this chamber who was found guilty of domestic violence, no expulsion. We had a former speaker sit in this chamber who is now under federal investigation, no expulsion. We have a member still under federal investigation, no expulsion. We had a member pee in another member's chair in this chamber, no expulsion. In fact, they're in leadership. In the governor's administration. And so once again, what you're saying to us, since you're trying to put us on trial, I'll say what you're really putting on trial is the state of Tennessee. What you're really showing for the world is holding up a mirror to a state that is going back to some dark, dark roots. A state in which the Ku Klux Klan was founded, is now attempting another power grab by silencing the two youngest black representatives and one of the only women, Democratic women in this body. That's what this is about. Let us be real today. Let us be real today. Colleagues, there's another part of this. This extreme measure is a violation twofold, because it also is an attempt to silence and undo the will of over 200,000 Tennesseans whom the three of us represent. Your extreme measure is an attempt to subvert the will of voters who democratically elected us as representatives to speak and to passionately fight for them. When I entered into this chamber, many members said, "What will you do with this supermajority?" I said, "We will fight for you. We will not bow down simply because they have numbers, because we know that we are on the right side of history and that this body is not the ultimate say. That this is not a palace or a frat house or the Belmead Country Club, but that this is the people's house. And so when we came into this well to say, I see you, I'm with you, the people of this state, we are standing with you. We were saying, this is the people's house. And we will not bow down." Somebody said they were shouting on the floor. They were shouting on the floor. And it reminded me of a scripture from Genesis that said, the blood cried out. The blood cried out. That's what we were saying. There's a scripture that says, if we are silent, the stones will shout out. That's why we were shouting. No action, no peace. No action, no peace. No action, no peace. Let's talk about the power grab. This is unprecedented, not just for our state, but it's the reason why states across this nation are sending letters condemning this body. The White House is talking about what's happening in this body because what Tennessee is doing is a power grab of ousting 3 lawmakers, your colleagues, simply because you have the numbers to do it. If I didn't know this was happening to us, and I read the news, 3 opposition legislators expelled from the legislature, I would think that this was another nation. But no, it is Tennessee showing to the world that democracy is no more. That simply because of gerrymandered districts and voter suppression, you have stolen the people's house and think that you are ultimate authority. Whereas, during the House floor session on March 30th, 2023, Justin Jones of Davidson County, along with Gloria Johnson of Knox and Justin Pearson of Shelby County, did knowingly and intentionally bring disorder and dishonor to the House of Representatives through their individual and collective actions. Mr. Speaker, how can you bring dishonor to an already dishonorable House? How can you bring disorder to a House that is out of order, where the Speaker refuses to let representatives elected to speak for their people even be heard? How do you bring dishonor and disorder to a chamber that does not follow decorum, due process, constitutional rights, or the rules that they enact themselves? There is no equal application of law or rules as we see in this chamber, as we saw today. But it depends on who you know. It depends on if you have a certain letter by your name. It depends on if you have the supermajority. That does not sound like democracy to me. Many members counseled and said, perhaps you should come here and plead mercy. Perhaps you should come here and say, we throw ourselves at your mercy. That we should be ashamed of what we did and hold our heads down low. But what we did was the only logical thing to do after a session defined by extreme silencing of representatives of this body, a session defined by multiple moments in which the attempt to even bring up gun violence was immediately out of order.
That was your 20 minutes. Representative Garrett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your comments, Representative Jones. I've got several questions. And first, I'd like to know that the questions I'm going to ask today, will you be able to answer them specifically?
Representative Jones.
Yes.
Representative Garrett.
Isn't it true that approximately at 10:49 last Thursday, Representative Johnson, Representative Pearson, and you gathered at Representative Johnson's desk at approximately 10:49 last Thursday?
Representative Jones.
Yes, as we frequently gather at her desk, because it's in the corner of the room.
Representative Garrett.
You, Representative Johnson, and Representative Pearson then moved in unison to the well of the House, correct?
Representative Jones.
Are you saying at that time, or are you saying it in general?
Representative Garrett.
At that time, you moved in unison with Representative Johnson and Representative Pearson to the well, isn't that correct?
Representative Jones.
I'm not sure of the certain time, but we did walk together.
Representative Garrett.
At approximately 10:49 a.m. that day, on Thursday, you walked from Gloria Johnson's desk, Representative Johnson's desk, with Representative Pearson to the well, correct?
Representative Jones.
Thank you. This question has been asked and answered, but I'll answer it again. I'm not sure of the particular time. I want to be factual. Unlike this resolution, I want to make sure I have the facts correct. And so I cannot say the exact time, but I can say maybe around that time we walked over together.
Representative Garrett.
You, Representative Johnson, Representative Pearson, then began from the well shouting without recognition. Is that correct?
Representative Jones.
We began shouting after repeatedly being denied recognition.
Representative Garrett.
At that time that you approached the well, did you have recognition from the Speaker of the House to speak at the well?
Representative Jones.
And I also want to say that I just want to speak for myself. I don't want to speak for my other colleagues, and so I'll speak for myself that after repeatedly being denied, I did shout with the people in the chambers and offer solidarity to the people calling for an end to mass shootings and the proliferation of firearms in our community.
Representative Garrett.
So you and other members, the two members referenced before, gathered in the well, and the Speaker gavelled you out of order. Isn't that correct?
Representative Jones.
And I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, but I'll say that I entered this well and shouted with the young people pleading for their lives, calling for us to act on gun violence
Representative
after
Garrett.
repeatedly being denied recognition by Speaker Cameron Sexton.
Representative Garrett.
Then do you deny that you were in the well and Speaker Sexton gavelled you out of order?
Representative Jones.
From my recollection, the Speaker gavelled out of order, recess almost instantaneously when we approached this well. And as you said in that video, much of what occurred on that video that Justin Lafferty took was not while we were in session, but it was after the Speaker, within about 10 seconds, gavelled a recess. And so what we did in this well, the majority of the time we were in this well, was during a recess.
Representative Garrett.
But at the time you entered the well, we were in session. So my question specifically, which you said you would answer my question specifically, you approached the well, began to shout in the well, and the Speaker gavelled you out of order. Do you deny that the Speaker gavelled you out of order?
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Representative Garrett. I can't recall the number of times the Speaker has gavelled me out of order for simply doing my job as a representative, but on that day, the Speaker, in his normal fashion, chose to silence members as he had done throughout that day.
Representative Garrett.
And do you understand to speak from the well as you are speaking today, you were able to speak because Speaker Sexton recognized you in the well to be able to speak?
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I'm able to speak because the people of District 52 sent me here to speak. Speaker Sexton is not my constituent. Speaker Sexton is not a king. Speaker Sexton is not God, though he may want to be. He is my colleague. And so the people of District 52 sent me here to speak. And it's them who I ask for permission if I can speak and represent them.
Representative Garrett. We're out. Very good. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're here today because voices have been silenced. We're here today because we have a system that says we value a process. Yet in that process, particularly in our committees, voices are continuously silenced. Then we get to the floor, and the same is true. We don't get to fully vet bills. People can't represent their constituents' voices And it has happened time and time again. This is not democracy. Democracy says your voice will be heard. I served 21 years in the military, and I do it again to protect democracy. I've traveled to other countries in the name of democracy. Yet, on this floor, for what appeared to be 15 seconds of a rule violation, we're not protecting democracy. Representative Jones represents thousands of people in this state whose voice have been silenced time and time and time again. And we had just had this mass shooting and only wanted to elevate the voices of those people. That's what he wanted to do. And for a simple rule violation, we have elevated this to the highest level of admonishment. That's not democracy. And even more, the gentleman has already been stripped of his committees, has already been restricted access to this building to represent those voices. And so now we're going to double punish. We're going to punish you, and then we're going to punish you. That's not democracy. As a member of this body, I'm here to make sure that we do uphold our democracy and that we value the voices of the people that are sent here, all of us. It's honorable to be sent here to represent those voices. And history is going to reflect what we do this day. History will reflect if it was worth these 15 minutes, 15 seconds of elevating the voices of the people rises to this level of admonishment. We have an opportunity in this body today to say it doesn't rise to that level. We have an opportunity to recognize someone just want to elevate the voices of their people. And maybe in the heat of passion, we feel like we have to admonish at the highest level, but I beg of you not to do that today. History will reflect it. And I am hoping that you decide to be on the right side of history at this moment in time. This would be a dangerous precedence to set. And one day, it will be you. One day, if we don't have the courage right now to say, we may not agree with how they decided to elevate the voices. We don't have to agree. But to expel someone, punish them, then expel them, that's out of order. I beg of you to allow them to continue to serve, allow them to represent their voices, have a full conversation in this state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Speaker Sexton. I just had a few questions before I get started about a couple of them. Prior to 1049, when you and your colleagues met over at the representative from Knoxville's desk, I believe there was a parliamentary inquiry regarding a button that you were wearing. Could you tell me a little bit about your parliamentary inquiry and the purpose of it?
Representative Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. There actually were multiple parliamentary inquiries levied. The first parliamentary inquiry was when the Speaker shut off my voting machine when I walked out to stand with those protesting. And I came back, and it said I could not vote on that machine. I'd never seen that happen in this body, a member who stepped outside coming back in and their voting machine being shut off. The second parliamentary inquiry is when the House clerk said that the Speaker had filed a complaint against a pin that I was wearing that stated, that had a picture of an AR-15 and said, "We must stop the assault." I raised the parliamentary inquiry because a few days prior, Senator Joey Hensley entered to this well with a Confederate flag tie on and was allowed to stand here. But I was threatened with a complaint for wearing a pin that expressed the demands of my district and of my constituents that we take action to end the proliferation of assault weapons in our community.
Representative Williams.
Thank you. Appreciate your answer to the question. The reason for the parliamentary inquiry was because after the rules say that we can't have props or buttons or things of that nature, and the fact that we do have, even today, we welcome our senators into the well, of which we have 4 in here today. The interesting part about it is the button was on your lapel. You were asked about the parliamentary inquiry. You were told by the clerk that no, it was not proper. It was against the rules in order to do so. And as soon as that was happening, I sat here at my desk, I looked over there, and then immediately you put the button back on your lapel and said, "The rules don't apply to me." And so I recognized that when I saw it, and that button was on your lapel when you overtook the well. I guess the question for me too is when you took the bullhorn where you stand today, how did that bullhorn get into this chamber? Did you sneak it in the dark overcoat that you had when you went in and out of the house that day, or did you put it in your desk drawer? Tell me how you came to acquire that bullhorn.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was multiple questions there, and so let's take them one by one. Representative Williams, with all due respect, I answered, and you tried to tell me what my answer should have been, but which it was not. And so just because you want it to be an answer does not mean that it is the answer. When I raised my parliamentary inquiry, the Speaker once again shut off my microphone as I was addressing the issue. Can we roll the tapes? The Speaker once again shut off my microphone because he has a button up there that he loves to use to silence members. And so I was not able to complete my parliamentary inquiry. And if you notice in the video, the megaphone, which was in my jacket, the miniature megaphone, was not brought out until the Speaker said, "Recess." And after he said recess, that's when I pulled it from my jacket. So every complaint you have with the megaphone was for actions that happened during recess. And the only reason that I had to use a megaphone is because House Speaker Cameron Sexton cut my voice and the voice of the 78,000 people I represent from the microphone. That's the only reason I had to bring a megaphone, is because the Speaker cut off the microphone.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the representative's honesty about being the one who brought the bullhorn into the well, because I did not know where it had come from. And out of limited time, obviously, there's one question that, as I thought about this over the weekend, and we wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to defend your actions, one of the questions that keeps coming back to my mind that I hope maybe you can answer is when you say no action, no peace, what do you mean? What does Representative Jones mean by no peace? Thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I would invite my colleague from Putnam County to join any protest where that is a very familiar chant that usually goes, "No justice, no peace." And I believe the roots of it lie in something that Martin Luther King stated, that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, but it is the presence of justice. That's what I was saying, is that until we act there will be no peace in our communities. In addition, I would like to read some context about that chant that comes from Jeremiah 6:14. I'll read the New Living Translation. It says, they offer superficial treatments for my people's mortal wound. They give assurances of peace where there is no peace. I'll go to the New International Version. They dress the wound of my people as though it was not serious. Peace, 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 they say, where there is no peace. That's what the chant means, is that we have no peace. And that until we act, there will be no peace for the thousands of children who came here demanding that we act, who are afraid that if they're in school, they will be gunned down because you have passed laws to make it easier to get a gun than it is to get health care in this state. You've passed laws that make it easier to get a gun than it is to vote in this state. And so that there will be no peace in Tennessee until we act on this proliferation of weapons of war in our community. That is the peace I was talking about. That is what I was saying. Representative Williams, thank you for your question.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I rise today to implore you not to do this. We have votes on this floor all the time that I disagree with, but this one sets a very dangerous precedent. There are 78,000 people that Representative Jones represents. He was elected in a competitive primary. This is who that district wants to represent them. March 27th, 6 people were killed in Nashville, 3 children. We had a couple of presentations. I was fortunate enough to say some words. My colleague, who also represents Davidson County, wanted to say some words and didn't get the opportunity. The passion that he has for his constituents overflowed, and he couldn't take it anymore and felt like his voice and the voice of the 78,000 people that he represents needed to be heard. You know, I understand that my colleague, Representative Jones, challenges you. He's an intelligent, powerful advocate for some causes and issues that you don't want to deal with, that are uncomfortable for you, that challenge your norms, that challenge your beliefs. He speaks to all these people up here. They want him to be here. And I think that scares people in this room. I think it scares people in this room that he can speak to the people and speaks for the people in a way that many of us in this room can't. I urge you to not vote to expel. We need his voice. You may not agree with him. I don't agree with all of you all the time. Surprise. But we need his voice. He represents a constituency in our state, which we are the Tennessee State House of Representatives, and we cannot silence those people. I'm sorry to the 78,000 people that duly elected Representative Justin Jones if his voice is stripped from you. And I urge all of you to vote against expulsion.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've only got a few questions in the time that I have, and I appreciate your candor and I appreciate your responses. And again, I would ask that hopefully you can respond specifically to my question. You knew that Article 2, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution vested the House with the power to set its own rules, correct?
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I cannot cite the specific provision in the state constitution, but I know that rules were passed in this chamber that the majority of colleagues on my side of the aisle did not agree to.
Representative Garrett.
And I understand that some folks voted against the rules that we passed here. That's your obligation to vote against them. But if you vote against them, does that mean that you don't have to follow them?
Representative Jones.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Representative Garrett, but I believe that this is the first time in Tennessee history that a rule violation is resulting in an expulsion hearing. This is the first time that a minor infraction of rules brings a member before this body to be expelled, because as I listed, every other measure of expulsion beginning in 1866 to 2016 were for acts that were criminal, unethical, not a rule violation.
Representative Garrett.
Today, I mentioned before that we've had several pieces of legislation that has traveled through the system. Everyone was able to speak on it. Everyone's district's voice that wanted to speak was heard today. In a week ago, that stopped. This is just not about one specific instance or one specific rule that may be broken. The rules here are for order. We owe that to the constituents that we represent across this state. And when it says to us, and I'll leave you with this, a couple more questions. With that, knowing that the House could not do business when you entered the well and you were gavelled out of order, and you continue to stay in the well, you placed a bullhorn out of your own jacket, as you said earlier. Those actions, the Speaker had no choice but to recess, because then the emotion in this place exploded. So with all of that conduct by you, by overtaking the well against the rules of this House that we are bound to do under Article 2, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution. That's the site that says we must have rules for this House so we can achieve what we achieved today by passed legislation today in an orderly fashion. I ask you this simple question. Were your actions last week as you define them, were they disorderly and disruptive to this House chamber?
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had to take notes because I believe there's about 10 questions in Representative Garrett's comments. I want to begin with the first one, the first statement made. Today, every member was allowed to speak. Today, he had to make that clear that today every member was allowed to speak because the news is here today. But let's talk about yesterday. Let's talk about last week. He said that stopped last week. No, it stopped when Speaker Cameron Sexton was sworn in as House Speaker, that every voice was allowed to be heard. This happened when Cassida was here. And so for many years in this body, every member has been stopped from speaking by a supermajority that is drunk with power. He stated you overtook the well trying to use language that harkens violence. No, we walked into the well. We walked together. Children, don't you get weary. We walked to the well. We didn't overtake anything. We did not use violence. We did not act in ways that were unlawful. We walked together peacefully and orderly to the well that many of us had been not afforded the opportunity to speak from. You said, was your actions disorderly and disruptive? I think the honest answer is that I believe that my presence here as one of the youngest black lawmakers who speaks for my district is disruptive to the status quo. I believe that's what is disruptive, that when I'm in committee and you seek to pass agendas that harm my community, I say objection, point of order, I don't agree, my constituents deserve a voice. That is disruptive and to the status quo, because you would have us bow down. But Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego said, we shall not bow. And that is what I say to you, Representative Garrett, that we shall not bow. That is what I say to the House Speaker, that we shall not bow. Because what is disorderly is a body that has used voter suppression and rigged maps to take control of our state. What is disorderly is a body that silenced the voices of Nashville at the congressional level, at the city council level, now trying to remove us at the legislative level. That is disorderly to democracy. That is disruptive to what we have an obligation to uphold. And so that is my response.
Yeah, Representative Love, yep, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, a few years ago, we made the Bible the state book. And there is this common thread in there about grace. Grace. It's not easy to bestow grace. Martin Luther preached in 1522, said, God's grace received must be bestowed. So I'm asking you, just consider. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. I know there are a lot of hurt feelings. But I'm asking you to consider the grand scheme of things, the future of our body, and not take this particular vote. And consider what my colleagues have said about representation and about those members who will not be able to have their voices heard in this chamber. Thank you for hearing me and considering what I've suggested. Thank you.
Representative also.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I have one question for the representative, but before I ask it, I want to say a couple of things. First, the representative's address was a compelling, eloquent statement of why he needs to be expelled. In fact, when you listen to it carefully and closely, it's clear that he wants to be expelled. That's why he refers to all of you as a dishonorable house. We all saw the video of what he did. He and two other representatives effectively conducted a mutiny on March the 30th of 2023 in this very chamber. Recall that in his opening statement, he called his actions honorable. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that the gentleman shows no remorse. He does not even recognize that what he did was wrong. So not to expel him would simply invite him and his colleagues to continue to engage in mutiny on the House floor, a mutiny which to this body and to this state has been unknown in its 227-year history since we adopted our Constitution in 1796. In passing for the moment the fact that he does not even consider what he did on March 30 wrong, look at the disrespect with which he has conducted himself today. He called our speaker a liar. He pointed derisively at our speaker. He insulted each and every one of you, effectively convicting you of being beholden to interest groups rather than voting your conscience. And then the one that I really do not understand is he said that if you vote to expel him, which is actually what he wants, you will be undoing the will of 200,000 Tennesseans. But we know that's not true, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? We know it because we can read our Constitution. This resolution opens with a recitation of the provisions of Section 12 of Article 2 of our Constitution. It's just one sentence, but it says three things. It says each house, the House and the Senate, has the power to determine its own rules. And then second, it provides that each chamber, the House and the Senate, has the power to punish for disorderly behavior. And then third, it says with the concurrence of 2/3 of the body can expel the member for disorderly behavior. It says those three things. So what we've got, ladies and gentlemen, is a case that clearly falls within the confines of Section 12 of Article 2. Was the representative's conduct on March the 30th, quote, disorderly behavior, close quote? You bet it was. It's as severe a violation of our Constitution and our rules that a member can be guilty of on the House floor. There is a basis, a strong factual basis, to vote for expulsion. But what does expulsion mean? Does it mean a death penalty, as we've heard? No, not at all, because Section 12 goes on and says that a representative cannot be expelled a second time for the same offense. So this is not a death penalty. If, in fact, this body votes to expel the representative, which is what he wants, apparently, he cannot be expelled a second time. In other words, whether or not he comes back is going to be determined locally by the authorities in Davidson County and the voters in Davidson County. This is not a death penalty. Section 12 explicitly recognizes that he might come back. It says you can't be expelled a second time for the same offense. So effectively what we're doing today, ladies and gentlemen, is we are upholding our Constitution. We are protecting the integrity of this body. Let's vote to expel him. That will send the case back to the voters in Davidson County. And if after looking at his conduct, they find he should come back, we will welcome him as a representative.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't hear a question, but while my colleague's statement was eloquent, what he was essentially saying was that Justin is an uppity Negro. How dare he point at the speaker and call a lie a lie? How dare he act like he's your equal? How dare he come before this body and not bow down? That's what Representative Bulso was saying, and that's what he told me on the elevator 2 days ago when he tried to incite violence against me and got in my face and said, "You are a damn disgrace." And I said, "Representative Bulso, hold on, let me pull up my phone. Can you say that again?" And he cowered and chose not to repeat it because he did not want the world to see what a disgrace he is for Williamson County voters. What we are doing today is not respecting the Constitution, but I'm not surprised because time after time again, this body chooses to burn the Constitution. In fact, we've passed more lawsuits than legitimate laws. When I hear Representative Bulso's statement, it reminds me that there are people in this chamber whose real offense is not what we did, but that in breaking the quorum, we asserted our humanity, we asserted the voices and humanity of our district, we asserted our dignity as equal members of this body who you would rather have silenced, who you would rather have not hear, who you would rather have back somewhere else instead of up here as your equal. And that, sir, is disheartening. Because I know that not every member of the other side of the aisle feels like you do, Representative Bulso. But throughout this session, I have seen the passion with which you have to attack marginalized communities, and it has disheartened me to see that someone like that sits in this chamber. Someone who has made it his mission to target the vulnerable. It hurts to see that. And so I did say that what the speaker did was lie when he went on national television and told national news that the kids outside, the children who were pleading for their lives, calling for an end to mass shootings, he said they were insurrectionists. He said that they tried to rush the chamber. He said that what we did was violent, and that was a lie, as the video showed you. Thank you for the evidence. Play that on Fox News next time, and not the edited video that the speaker chose to retweet and tag Donald Trump and tag all these conservative pundits. That is what the speaker did a few days ago, and that is dishonorable. It is beneath the dignity of the office of House Speaker to have the Speaker targeting and trying to incite violence against members of this body. But his words have consequences. As one of our community members had his house shot, his words have consequences. As youth who participated in the protests asked me, is it safe to come to the next protest after the Speaker called us insurrectionists? Mothers saying, is it going to be safe for my children? Or was the Speaker giving a dog whistle to the Proud Boys and other groups to show up? That is dishonorable. And like I said before, I pray for an apology. Because, Representative Bulso, I will apologize when the Speaker and you all apologize to the families at Covenant, when you apologize to the families from the Waffle House, when you apologize to those many countless victims to gun violence because of your reckless gun laws, because of your reckless laws that proliferate weapons of war in our communities. When you apologize, then I will apologize. To Representative Bulso's point, I broke a rule. I did acknowledge that. But what I did not break was my oath that said that I would dissent from and protest against any legislation that is injurious to the people. What I did not break was my promise to the people of District 2 that I would fight for them no matter the consequences. What I did not break was my oath to future generations that says that when I see something that is wrong, that is unjust, that is unfair, I will find a way to get in the way and to get in good trouble, necessary trouble. So thank you for your question.
Representative Towns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what I see today is really a spirit of anger on this House floor. People are angry. Either justified or unjustified. There's a spirit of anger walking among the members, the brotherhood, the fraternity, the sorority in this Tennessee chamber. There should not be a spirit of anger. There's an old saying that goes that to whom the gods will destroy, they must first make angry. When they're about us, we lose our heads. We're fighting in a war, or we're fighting for something. When we lose our heads and become angry, we do dangerous things to each other. And the body of politics, the body of the Tennessee Chamber, we're doing dangerous things, attempting to do dangerous things, dastardly things, unwilling things, bad things to each other. The brotherhood, the sisterhood, that is not good. Each of you know, you live long enough to know that democracy is messy sometimes. Democracy is messy. Go all the way back to the founder of the country. Deal with the women's movement, the right to vote. Deal with the civil rights movement. Democracy is messy, and it always will be messy to get something out of it. You're trying to get to the pearls of wisdom, the pearls, the gold, the diamonds, but it's a messy process. It's not pretty all the time. It's never been pretty all the time. Any of you all that understand and know history, it's always a little messy. But we perfected some things in this country that allow us to make change and evolve and do good. Right now, we're not doing good because under these circumstances, that happen to our fellow members, we're trying to crucify them when there were other measures that could be taken. There are other measures that could be taken that could have driven the point home as it relates to what we want to see, decorum and order. Other things could have been taken. But we opted out because we're angry to seek the nuclear option. When you drop a nuclear bomb, you destroy everything. You never use a sledgehammer to kill a gnat with. We are dropping the nuclear option on one of our fellow members. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that dog bites twice. Comes back to bite you in your butt too. We should not go to the extreme of expelling our members for fighting for what many of the citizens want to happen, whether you agree with it or not. Is there the right way to do things? Of course there is. Many of y'all probably secretly admire the courage of our young members and Gloria. You probably admire the courage. How many of y'all can remember how you acted when you were 20 years old, 25 years old? If there's a video camera around, I bet you don't want to see that. Our conduct. Some of us are older and we did not have everything that we did on tape today. So you make allowances for our young people to grow and to become, because regardless, at some point, they're going to have to run this country. I'm encouraging some compassion. Don't vote for this expulsion of any of our members. I didn't vote for the Jeremy Dermer expulsion. I thought it was wrong. It was wrong then, and it's wrong today. They should not be expelled for fighting for something that many of the citizens of the state of Tennessee want. Let's think deeply, let's think caringly, and let's show we have the ability to lead with a good heart. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Representative Farmer. Pass. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. Colleagues, I've thought long and hard what I needed to say to y'all. It's simple. We all need Mo Black Jesus. That guy with the woolly hair and the bronze feet. Now, that truth is what we base our lives on. So I'm not surprised that we're here. I'm disappointed and to a great extent, just disgusted. I was here when Kent Williams became Speaker. The chaos, the confusion, threats against his life, it all happened right here on this floor. And you know who led that? My Republican colleagues. Neither I nor any of my Democratic colleagues jumped up and demanded their resignations or demanded that they be hauled before the Ethics Committee, much less demand that they be expelled. And after he was elected Speaker, listen to me, he had to have the Tennessee Highway Patrol to escort him from his desk to the Speaker's podium. Speaker, you were here. If you weren't here, you need to listen to this because it's scary. It is scary. I watched how men and women went from gentlemen and gentle ladies into monsters. It was the worst possible scene that I have ever seen and that you could ever imagine on the floor of the House. But let's talk about why we're here. We're here because 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults were murdered at school, which should be one of the safest places that you could be in your life. I can't imagine the trauma that these young folks will have to live with for the rest of their lives. I can't imagine the trauma that their parents will have to experience every time they leave the house going to where? School. And it's something that we could have acted on last session, session before that, the session before that, and we chose not to. These young folks came in, refused to be a prisoner of procrastination, and demanded justice. That's why we're here. They demanded justice for those children and justice for those hundreds of children who have died across Tennessee over the years. I'm happy that we've started to move on legislation that will help to mitigate the problem so that our classrooms and our playgrounds don't become killing fields in Tennessee. I'm grateful for the work that we've done. But I tell you, young, gifted, intelligent, and black, I'm proud of him. He broke rules. He did not break the law. This is, in spite of what my colleague said, this is a death penalty, because if he's expelled, he will no longer be a part of this process. So I urge you, do the right thing. Vote like you were voting for your seatmate.
Representative, thank you. Representative Gant, you got your pass. All right. Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're setting a precedent today that a lot of you in here, including myself, you better think long and hard about it. You know, there's been many of us in here, and you know who you are, there's rules that are broken. I mean, there's been many a time we've had debate on this floor. I've gotten hot. Another member's gotten hot. I know of 2 instances of 2 people in pretty high-level positions on the other side have come back here to my desk and threatened bodily harm. Do I say we ought to jump up and throw them out of here for that? No, in the moment, they lost their temper. They lost their composure because they believed what they believed. They were willing to fight for what they believed in. You got to admire that. So I'm sorry if you're sitting in here and you're not willing to fight for what you believe in. I understand you've got to be composed, but every now and then you're going to lose it. Even the best of us are going to lose it. But today, you set this precedent that you're going to throw him out of here for breaking a rule. I've said it before and I've said it again. I've had some people sit beside me on this House floor. I've had to look up the aisle at a former speaker that there's not a jail cell that he doesn't deserve to be in, and have to sit here and look at that. And I didn't hear a peep out of anybody saying we ought to toss him out of here. And everybody knew it wasn't a rule he broke. There wasn't a felony he didn't see, he didn't want to break. But not a soul said a thing about it. We all just, we'll let the process work itself out. You know, I had somebody sit beside me, multiple teenage girls say things that should make us all cringe about that member. No one wanted to do anything about that. But we're going to throw a young man out today who had the audacity to fight for what he believes in. I hope you have the audacity to fight for what you believe in. If not, there's the door. You shouldn't be here. If you're not willing to do what it takes to make change, to make this state better, to make your community better, you're probably in the wrong place. But do people lose their composure sometimes? Yes, they do. Guilty is charged right here. I'll be the last one to throw that rock. But if you're going to set this precedent, you better think long and hard about it. And you better hold up to that standard. You better not look at beside the name and see if it's a D or an R beside the name. You better look and say, they broke a rule. You know, somebody may have been videotaping on the House floor. You can hear the speaker say recess in the video. You know, so I mean, if you're going to set that precedent, you know, you may want to go watch that video. So don't look if a D or an R is beside their name. You're going to set the precedent. Let's live by it. Just think about that, folks. Have a little grace. And look in yourself and say, will I fight for what I believe in? Thank you.
Representative Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I feel very disappointed. I've been excited about democracy. I've been excited since I got elected to this House, and this is terrible. And really, it's just disappointment is what comes to mind. Representative Jones, you've had a difficult time. You look at everything through the lens of race. Those are your experiences, and that's perfectly understandable. But sincerely, after becoming elected, you should be celebrating. You really should be. You should join the House, become one of us, make the transformation from being a person who, yes, we've known you demonstrating a lot, mobilizing the community, but make the transformation to be a representative who represents. You claim that you have 78,000 people to represent. You claim that you have 78,000 people to represent. But, sir, you have not done that. You have mainly interrupted the proceedings. You have attacked fellow representatives. You have attacked the chairman almost in all committees. That is not representing your people. That is not going to bring credit to the people that you claim to represent. I'm an immigrant, everybody knows. I have been in this country for 53 years. And when it was 50 years, you recognized me for that. It was a celebration in my mind and for my family. In those 53 years in America, I have never encountered a racial slur. I'm really not aware that any of that applies to me. I live a good life. Yet, you on tape call me a brown face. Yes, sir, it's on tape. It's on tape, okay? You can't deny that. Wow, I said it's on tape, okay? You called me that. After the committee meeting on that same day, you walked up to me. You had no business coming up to me. You were sitting a row or two ahead of me. You shoved your finger in my face and said, Kumar, they will never accept you. You said it twice, and you were so intimidating that the sergeant at arms, without my invitation, came and intervened between us. Sir, that is very disappointing. You did that. I was there.
Hang on, Chairman Clemens, you have a question?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. He's talking about things that aren't the subject of the resolution.
Well,
I don't know that he's even telling the truth, but he's definitely not talking about anything that's subject of the resolution.
Well,
the events that took place on this floor.
Chairman Clemens, I'd be careful about the language that you use because that would impugn his reputation, which we had conversations about a few weeks ago. So I would be careful. You didn't go there, so I appreciate that. We have given latitude to the representative in the well who's made many accusations against me and other members of this House. I'll ask Chairman Kumar to stay on the topic of today, but I would advise you then that everybody in this chamber, including as the representative in the well, to stay on the topic and germane to the conversation. Representative Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wrap it up by saying that it is disappointing that you have insulted this body. You have insulted your colleagues. You have insulted the House of Representatives in the state of Tennessee. You have insulted our Speaker. You have personally insulted me. And part of that is on tape, sir. I implore you that let us take it from here, whether you are expelled or not, but please, come on, you are a talented young man. You have a lot to offer, but offer it in a way that people are accepting of your ideas. Join the society where you celebrate your achievements. I wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And there's a lot to unpack there, Representative Kumar. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. I mean, it's sad what you just stated to me, and that's what this is really about. He said, you see everything under the lens of race. When you join this body, you should just become one of us. Just assimilate. That's very disappointing to hear, my friend. And what I told you was what you just exhibited. As the only member of their caucus who is not of the Caucasian persuasion, I said that you put a brown face on white supremacy. That's what I stated.
All right, Representative Jones, Chairman Clemens, you know that that's out of line if you're moving down Chairman Kumar. We've asked people to stay on Germain. I asked to stay on Germain. He made his he made a statement right there. I got it. We're not going down there. You got your response. You have it. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think he has an opportunity and the right to defend himself from allegations that were asserted on the floor. I think if the record needs to be corrected, he has every right in this hearing to correct the record and state the facts.
So I just want, for the record, you're okay with going off of the resolution and not saying Germain? Because I ruled him out of order and made him go to a different direction based on your point of order. Chairman Clemens?
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. Of course, he continued to speak. And once the toothpaste comes out of the tube on an allegation like that, I think it's right to correct the record, if only briefly. And I know my colleague will stay on the resolution from here on. But I think those types of allegations deserve a response. Thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And continuing in response to Representative Kumar's egregious statements, he stated that he has never heard a racial slur. I heard one in this body not too long ago when Representative Sherrill recommended that we should bring back lynching in this body. And so I'll move on. the statement and recommendation of Representative Kumar was that I would not be up for expulsion if I just assimilated, if I just conformed, if I just confined myself, as he has done, to be accepted by this body. He said that you attack chairman. Let's unpack that. Me asserting the voice of my district is what he is referring to. Me ensuring that the rules are followed in committee and raising points of order and points of parliamentary inquiry when the chairman acts against the rules is what he is talking about. Me asserting the voice of the 78,000 people of District 52 to him is an attack. To me is upholding my responsibility as a legislator. And so no, I did not come in this body expecting to be accepted by this side of the aisle. I came here to serve the people of District 52 and to do good work and to force conversations that we have to have in this body. Because so many times I sit in these committees, and the bill he's talking about, we try to censor conversations. He was talking about a bill where we were censoring conversations on race, censoring what kids can learn in school because it makes people uncomfortable to talk about Black history. And he expected me to be censored as a equally elected representative to not talk about the history of racism in America when he made those egregious statements in Government Operations Committee. He expected me to sit there and conform and accept things because that is the only reason that he's been accepted by these members here. But I don't want acceptance from you. I want acceptance from the people of my district. I don't want approval from you. I want approval from the people of my district. Because I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a change for my community.
Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, Representative Jones represents the 52nd district, and I represent the 53rd district. So our districts touch. We represent a lot of the same communities. We represent a lot of the same polling locations. And the voters of his district knew and know the type of person that Justin Jones is. Representative, you never hid the fact from the voters of your district that you're an activist, that you have been arrested. You never hid that. They knew that. Is that correct?
Representative Jones.
That's correct. In fact, Chairman Faison recently said, wasn't your slogan from the jailhouse to the State House when he introduced me to a member of Congress who was visiting a couple weeks ago? I never hid who I was and talked about the history and necessity for good trouble in this body.
Representative Powell.
Members, I was with Representative Jones the day he was elected. I was at the polling location with him. I helped him pick up signs, his signs, after the polls closed. I was there when the vote tally sheet was put up on the wall that showed that he had won his election. The people of Tennessee, each one of us, we represent different districts and different communities. We bring our experiences up here. That is what's wonderful about a representative democracy. And the people of District 52 knew and they know who Representative Jones is. And I have all the confidence in the world that they believe his message and everything that he's done to fight for his community. Members, I said this, and I'll say it again. I was in a third grade class the day of the shooting, reading down the street from this school to my son's class, full of third graders. When that shooting occurred, I was concerned that that might be my child's school. I didn't know. I have spent every day, and I said, this is a very difficult time. But members, I don't know why we are here today debating Justin Jones breaking the House rules. And yes, he voted against the House rules. I voted against the House rules. I had concerns about limiting debate and cutting off debate would cause issues, and it has caused issues amongst this body. But we are spending now unprecedented amount of times on this floor dealing with this issue. I had to leave here Monday night after this resolution was introduced and go to my son's Little League field and see red ribbons surrounding the outfield in memory of William Kinney, who was murdered. And I'm outraged, and we should all be outraged. We need to do something, and expelling Justin Jones is not the answer. It's a threat to democracy. It jeopardizes future generations that are outside watching us now. The people know who Justin Jones is. I'm proud of the type of person that Justin Jones is. We represent similar communities, and we're angry, and we have different ways of expressing ourselves. And I know we were shown a video, and it wasn't the official House video. I wonder where the official House video is. I'd like to see it, because it's germane to this debate. But expelling Justin Jones is not the answer, colleagues, and I urge you to please vote against expulsion.
Thank you. Representative Jones, anything? Nope. Representative Keisling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for the previous question.
Previous question been called. There's objection. We are on the board. Previous question's been called. We're on the board. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Aye, 73, 24 nays.
Previous question prevails. We are voting on House Resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Representative Jones, I'm sorry, you get 5 minutes to close. You have 5 minutes. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about nothing less than 75 people overruling the wishes of 78,000 people. And you're going to cut off debate? Give me a break. Is this a circus? You are talking about kicking somebody out of this body. Grow up. If you can't sit through a conversation or a debate on something no less than expelling a colleague, grow up. Get out of here. You don't belong here. You want to call the question? I am humiliated. I'm embarrassed. Look at the rules of procedure, the ethic rules. The purpose of this is to hold the respect and confidence of the people. Representatives should avoid conduct that even appears to violate the trust the people have placed in them. What are we doing? Call the question. Ladies and gentlemen, point of order is, if you don't want to sit here and have this discussion, withdraw the resolution. Let's move on to the people's business and actually address the issue that created what made you uncomfortable. The loss of life, not just those 6 losses of lives. People in every community across this state that continue to be killed by gun violence.
Hey, Chairman Clemens, it's a point of order. I understand you're upset by the call of the question. If somebody have a point of order where we are, not a speech on the floor, but we're at a point of order if that's where you're wanting to go. The question's been called. It was put on the board as objection. The rule prevailed to take the vote. If there's a question about point of order, we'll be happy to take it. Anybody? Leader Camper? No? Representative Hakeem?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There were a number of us who had their names on the list to speak. And I think it would be totally disrespectful not to allow us an opportunity to make necessary comments. One of the problems that we have is that the cutting off of debate. I mean, that's what we're here for. We talk about it being messy. We're talking about getting things done. We're talking about coming to a consensus. How can we do that if we don't hear the voices of more than ourselves, so to speak?
All right, yeah, is that a question for Mr. Clerk about calling the question? Okay, Mr. Clerk, can you read the rule, please?
Mr. Speaker, previous questions shall only be admitted when demanded by 2/3 of the members present.
Previous question's been called. Anybody can call it at any time, and we all know that that's a possibility. Leader Camper.
Thank you,
Point of
Mr.
order.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that we reconsider our actions on that. Is that appropriate? Or we ask that members reconsider their actions and withdraw your motion, allow us to continue the debate.
Hang on one second. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, this is from the rule. If the question prevails on the main motion, its effect shall be to preclude all future amendments and terminate all debate. So if previous question prevails, we're voting on the legislation.
The previous question has prevailed, so therefore we move to vote. That cuts off all motions according, is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Speaker, that's correct.
Yeah, Representative Jones still has his 5 minutes. Point of order, Representative Hardaway? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. And would a reconsideration be proper at this time?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no, it would not, as previous questions prevailed by 2/3 of the members present.
Representative Hardaway. Mr. Clerk.
The only right that does not cut off is the right of the opponent to close. And as the motion that was made earlier in the rule suspension, the representative in the well will have 5 minutes to close, even though previous question prevailed.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. It's just in my mind, and I don't know whether the clerk is quoting our rules or Robert's rules, but we have a motion that can't be reconsidered.
Mr. Clerk.
An action, rather, that can't be reconsidered.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the only opportunity to even be recognized once previous question has prevailed is as you have for a point of order or a parliamentary inquiry. So there's no opportunity to present a motion to reconsider.
Representative Hardaway.
Speaker, I disagree. However, we're going to move on.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it possible, or is there a rule that we have to vote on each member one at a time versus waiting to the end of these hearings and vote one for all three after that time, or is that a rule, or is that at the Speaker's discretion?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, these are being taken up one at a time. The only resolution before the body right now is House Resolution 65, so that's the only one of the three resolutions that the body will now be voting on.
Any further point of orders? All right, we are voting. Oh, 5 minutes. I keep forgetting. My bad. My bad. I got it. My apologies. Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I want to say that you have the power, you have the votes to do what you're going to do today. But I want to let you know that when I came to this well, I was fighting for your children and grandchildren too. That to those who here will cast a vote for expulsion, I was fighting for your children too, to live free from the terror of school shootings and mass shootings. When I walked up to this well on last Thursday, I was thinking about the thousands of students who were outside demanding that we do something. In fact, many of their signs said, do something, do something, do something. That was their only ask of us, is to respond to their grief, to respond to a traumatized community. But in response to that, the first action of this body is to expel members for calling for common sense gun legislation. We were calling for a ban of assault weapons, and the response of this body is to assault democracy. This is a historic day for Tennessee, but it may mark a very dark day for Tennessee, because it will signal to the nation that there is no democracy in this state. It will signal to the nation that if it can happen here in Tennessee, it's coming to your state next. And that is why the nation is watching us, what we do here. My prayer to you is that even if you expel me, that you still act to address the crisis of mass shootings. Because if I'm expelled from here, I'll be back out there with the people every week demanding that you act. If you expel me, I'll continue to show up because this issue is too important. I talked to too many students and mothers in tears this week who said, thank you for doing something. And so if you expel me, I recognize that it's not just about expelling me, but it's about expelling the people. But your action will do the exact opposite. It will galvanize them to see what is happening in this state requires sustained action. And so I hope that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, regardless of what you decide to do to me, because this is not about me, but this is about those young people who are asking us to use our position and to uphold our oath, to protest and dissent from any action or legislation that is injurious to the people. I pray that we uphold our oath on this floor because, colleagues, the world is watching.
All right, we are voting on House Resolution 65. All those in favor, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Aye, 72, 25 nays.
Having received the concurrence of 2/3 of the members to which the House is entitled under Constitution of the State of Tennessee, House Resolution 65 is hereby adopted without objection and motion to reconsider is tabled. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 12 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, I hereby declare Representative Justin Jones of the 57th Representative District expelled from the House of Representatives of the 113th Assembly of the State of Tennessee.